Welcome back, everybody. So today what we're going to do is install a three-way bypass valve for the killer chiller system. What this is going to allow me to do is shorten up the killer chiller system so that it's bypassing the factory aftercooler, air to water aftercooler in the car itself. So basically all the return coolant is going to go from the intercooler to the D3 tank to the pump into the killer chiller, out of the killer chiller back to the factory intercooler brick in the supercharger. So hopefully by bypassing the factory aftercooler, air to water aftercooler, it should shorten the system up and hopefully drop my temperatures down a little more. I am going to also try to insulate the lines a little bit more and hopefully not have a bunch of heat from the engine bay affecting any of that and make it a little more efficient. So we'll have a look at what that all contains. So here's the three-way valve kit from Kincaid Performance for the killer chiller. It's a Ecotech actuator on a three-way motorized or three-way ball valve. So the kit also comes with wiring diagram for the three-way wiring diagram, as well as some instructions from them. Just kind of shows the wiring. It also shows kind of the routing. So what this kit's going to do, the bypass valve is going to allow me to bypass the factory intercooler heat exchanger. So right out of the pump, it's going to go into the killer chiller system, then back up to the intercooler, out of the intercooler to the D3 reservoir tank, back to the pump, and so on, and hopefully drop the coolant temperature on that intercooler brick down quite a bit. And yeah, so the other thing that the kit comes with is a few tees. I'm gonna have to pick up some 3/4 inch hose and maybe some insulation for those hoses and some of the AC lines, and I'm gonna insulate as well. Try to drop the temperature down for track day tomorrow. So I guess I'll start taking the front of the car off. So the plan right now is to take the line coming off of the centrifugal supercharger coolant pump, which goes up to the factory heat exchanger. I'm going to splice in the three-way valve here and mount it so it's out of the way and not going to be dragging or anything like that. And then the elbow outlet will go up through the valence here to the inlet of the killer chiller. So it's going to bypass the factory heat exchanger, and then out of the killer chiller, runs down into the supercharger line, runs down under here, then up to the motor into the supercharger intercooler brick. Then I'm just going to have to run some wires into the cab for the switch. So I'm gonna drain the coolant and start mounting that. Okay, so plumbing's all done. So there's just the T in line. So out of the bypass valve, it's gonna go into the T, into the killer chiller, out of the killer chiller, up to the supercharger intercooler, and bypass the factory heat exchanger. So if we have a look here, you can see the valve is all plumbed in as well and in place. You can kind of see still the directional flow arrow on top of the valve. So all I got to do now is terminate the valve actuator and run. The black is going to be chassis ground, red's going to be positive, and the green's going to be the load line going up to the switch. So I'll start running those lines. Okay, so here's the switch installed. So I took the switch from the Hurst roll control line lock, put it over to this side where the momentary switch is, and then hooked the switch up for the killer chiller. So when it's on, and you can hear the solenoid opening right now and allowing flow through the killer chiller, bypassing the factory heat exchanger, and when it's off, the valve closes and it's back to normal through the heat exchanger, then the killer chiller. And I'll show you guys the valve underneath the car as well. So I didn't like how the valve was sitting, how low it was sitting, so I replumbed it. I turned it around and reran the wires, ground, and then the power and control, load line are going up to the switch inside the cab. But there's the valve. It's all mounted out of the way. So as you can see, it's all flush now, nothing sticking down. So with the chin spoiler and everything in place, nothing will be rubbing. I did put a piece of rubber hose I split around here where it comes through the air dam, just a little extra insurance for rubbing. So yeah, turned out pretty good. And now all I got to do is button it up and fill it up and try it out. So what I'm doing now is I'm hooking up the HP tuners to the car. I connected it and I went into controls and special functions and I turned on the intercooler pump. And by doing that, I'm just bleeding the air out of the system because it was all opened up. You can see the pump is circulating. That's working the air out of the system. And I'm going to turn on the three-way valve and make sure that there's no air going the other way. So the valve is open and the pump's running. So I'm just gonna give it a couple minutes here and just top up the fluids, make sure there's no air in the system at all. So that's it for the install. Everything went pretty good. As you can see, you still can't see anything of the cooler. It's all behind the crash bar. You kind of see some of the hosing, but the bypass valve and everything's all kind of tucked away, not restricting any flow. The supercharger system has been bled. I circulated it, bled all the air out. For the aftercooler on the inside, I have the two buttons. One is going to be for my
master power for line lock, which I'll show you that. So key on, line lock. That's for the solenoid for the line lock. And then I have the intercooler bypass valve. So blue light on, so blue light means that it's on bypass and going just to the killer chiller and bypassing the factory heat exchanger. Light off, I can hear the valve closing. And then we're back to going through the heat exchanger, then the killer chiller, then the supercharger brick. So everything went good. I'm gonna start it up tomorrow. It's getting kind of late, so I'm not gonna wake the neighbors up. And I have some new rotors and pads coming too. Hopefully they'll be here in the morning. So I'll leave the wheels off. I'll start it up in the morning and have a look at my temperatures compared to what it was before the bypass valve. Took the car for a test drive this morning. This is the run that I did, obviously down in Mexico. You can tell by the mile per hour, but this is a 5 times speed. And I basically did 3 good pulls in a row, trying to watch what my IAT2 temps are getting up to versus my intake air temps. I did see up to about 127 degrees Fahrenheit on IAT2, which after about 120, it starts pulling timing. So it pulled about a degree of timing at that temperature. But this is with the bypass on, and these are 3 good, the car was hot, 3 good pulls in a row. And the bypass seems to be pulling down the temperature another 7 degrees versus having the bypass not there and going through the factory heat exchanger. Mind you, it was cool yesterday morning. It was only 82 degrees out. It wasn't very warm, or sorry, so it wasn't a real hot day by any means. So we'll see, but so this is kind of the end. This is again 5 times the speed, but you can kind of see the temperature dropping as I'm kind of cruising. And then right about here, I think I stop pretty much. So now I'm parked and you can just watch those IAT temperatures drop. I'm just kind of putting around here and it gets down to about 64 with the ambient air of about 83, 84 degrees. So it's dropping 20 degrees below ambient, which is pretty good, but I think there's still room for improvement. So I'm gonna do some HVAC insulation on some of the lines, just, as much as I can and not make it look terrible. So that'll be the next step. But that'll be it for now for this bypass kit, and I'm pleased with it. I definitely think it's worth having to put in line. I didn't want to remove the factory heat exchanger altogether. Just in case the AC goes down, I don't want to just be relying on the killer chiller system. So by doing this bypass, I kind of get the best of both worlds. And it should be good for the track. So next weekend's going to be a track day, next Friday. So we'll see how it does for cooling everything down between runs. I think it's going to work pretty good. So thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. Like, subscribe, and we'll catch you next time.